Hey guys, what's up? I hope you're doing good. So in this tutorial, I'm going to show you how you can add the QR code login in your applications. So maybe you might have seen Discord with a similar approach. So if you go to discord.com/login, you will see that they allow you to log in via QR code. So if you go to discord.com and try logging in, so beside email or password, you can directly log in by scanning this QR code in the Discord app. So that's what we are going to reverse engineer and mimic in our application. So let's see what our demo application is. So this is our demo application. We have like simple login form. And let's create a user first. So let's create test2 at gmail.com. Test1 at gmail.com is already in there. So yeah, two, and then the password is whatever. So now I can choose, I'm logged in to that account. I can log out and log back in, but let's see how I can log in to a different browser with the same account by just, so let's open another one, go to side by side, and let's see how I can log in. So go to the same URL here. So if I go to the same URL, it will redirect me to login. So here I see I have try code login button. I click on that button. So now you can scan this QR code by just going to Google and then search with QR code, and it will give you the URL. I have implemented like the query params that will read the QR code. But for now, let's just try implementing by this code. So I just copied this code from this browser. Remember, I'm logged in with this test2 user. So let's see, log in and go back. And what I ideally want is to get logged in with the test2 user on my right hand side browser. So log in and success here, and it logged me in on this browser. So that's what we are going to implement. The backend is going to be written in Django and Django channels for real-time communication for WebSockets, and the front end is simple Next.js with TypeScript. So let's get started. Okay, so let's start by setting up the backend environment. So here I have just opened a directory on my machine in the VS Code. It's just a blank directory, no folder, no file here. So what you can do is just create a folder on your machine and then just open that folder in the editor of your choice. I'm using VS Code, so that's what I'm going to use here. So inside there, let's just create another folder called backend. We are going to write backend and frontend in separate folders, and let's just move to the backend folder, and then just let's create a virtual environment. I just named my environment a virtual environment. So what it's going to do is just create another folder called environment, and then add all of the dependencies in there. While I'm here, let's just add the Docker, let's just add the git ignore file. We can just copy and paste this git ignore file from GitHub. So just create a file called, not in this folder, but in the backend folder. And then just paste it. You can just copy and paste this file from the GitHub. I'll put the link to GitHub repo to the final project in the description. So now let's start by installing the basic requirements that we need to get this project up and running, at least the backend. So let's activate our virtual environment first. env/scripts/ activate for Windows, and for Mac, I think Mac and Linux, I think it's source env/bin/activate or something like that. If not, you can Google is your best friend. Just Google it and you'll find the answer. So I am in my virtual environment, which is env. By the way, I'm using Python 3.9. So make sure you're using 3.9 or the later version, 3.10 or the latest version if you want to. And now let's install the basic requirements. So here, what I'm going to do is just paste all of the requirements, like the basic requirements. So we need Django REST framework for APIs, codes, headers to communicate between our React frontend and the Django backend, Psycho PG2 for database communication. We are going to use Postgres in this project. So let's just hit enter and install all of those dependencies. Okay, so the basic dependencies are installed. So let's create the Django project. So Django admin, create a new Django project. And this will represent create the new project in this current backend directory. Otherwise, it will create a new folder called server. So let's just create the project. Okay, so here we have server folder and Python and Django's famous manage.py file. So now the first step should be to set up the database, and to set up the database, I'm going to use Docker. It's okay if you have the Postgres installed on your local machine. You can just give it the credentials of your root user in server/settings.py file. But I'm going to use Docker to just. So let's just create a Docker file here. I'm going to use Docker and Docker Compose to get my services up and running. So new file here. I'm just going to call this local compose.yml file. Inside there, I'm just going to use, yeah, okay, let's just write this version. It's going to be 3 for Docker Compose. And then there are going to be 2 services, but first it's only Postgres. So let's see Postgres. Okay, all right. GitHub Copilot is right here. So I'm not 9.6. Let's use 4.6 and 5431. I think it's good. 5431. Hopefully nothing is running on that board. 5443, Postgres, and yeah, everything is good to go. Let's create the volume here. Postgres data. Okay, so that's all you need to set up the Postgres. Let's start the Postgres instead. So docker compose dash local compose dot, additional volume is not allowed. Okay, so let's look at the Docker Compose. Yeah, that's need to be volumes. And now let's just build and start the Docker Compose. Okay, so okay, we have database up and running. System is ready to accept connection. So let's go to our settings.py file and update the database configuration. Database, yeah. So now what we need to do is to update it to use PostgreSQL. And so here what we need to do is engine is not SQLite3, that PostgreSQL. It's just your basic Django setup. So name is Postgres. It's Postgres, and here in user is going to be Postgres2, and password is going to be Postgres. And then port is 543. Let's see what port we set up here. 543. B3, yeah. 5433. Okay, we are good to go. Now we can start our Django server. CD backend. Oh, slash scripts slash need to activate my virtual environment. And we run the same thing. Python management and server. Okay, yeah, okay. Now we are good. So yeah, our application is running, so it means it's able to connect to the database, no errors. We still have some migrations. We are going to apply it later. Oh, look, let's just do it. Okay, so migrations are applied. Python. Let's start the server. Okay, we have the warning gone. Now let's just create our one and only app. And for that, we can use manage.py. Start app users. So this is our app. This is our only app for this backend. And since we have it, we should go to the install apps and add the user's app here. So here, let's just comment internal apps. These are our internal Django apps. And then here, we're going to say users.apps.userconfig. That's it. That's all we need to do here. And now let's, while we are here, let's add all of the third-party apps that we're going to use. So first thing, I'm going to use Django. Oh yeah, course headers. So third-party apps, course headers, right? And then channels, and then REST framework. REST framework, right? That's it. Let's see if we have migrations required. I don't think so. Yeah, we don't have migrations. Now for this one, we need to update the models a little bit. So for Django, we have like the internal user model. We need to tweak that a little bit to our use. So for that, in this models.py file, with this comment, and now we need to import from contrib auth.model and import abstract user. That's what I need. So to update our user model, what we need to do is just add our ID is equals to chart field primary key is equals to true, then default is equal to, so by default it's going to be a UUID. So define UUID. We need to import UUID as well. We're going to convert that UUID.UUID. Okay, hopefully it's going to give us the UUID. Oh, UUID for, let's say, UUID. Column UUID 4. Okay, that's default. Max length is equals to 56. And then editable is false. So email is going to be email field, unique is equal to true. So some other configuration, username field. Yeah. So what I like to do is I like to give them types so I get them everywhere. So username field is a string. And that's also the email. So for my application, the username field is going to be the email. So you will have to provide like email as username. By the way, this is email field. Right, and then required fields is username. Yeah, that's it. Let's specify it as string. I like to be like give all of the types myself, so I get this. Once you give the types to the model, you get it everywhere where you use this model. So the string representation, return self.email, like, and then to override some of the properties, let's update the meta class. Ordering is email, that's okay. Okay, table users, and then there's one more thing that I would like to add: unique together. Right, that's what, yeah, let's just leave it because I'm never going to use it anyway in my application, so it's not going to be a tuple. Okay, so these two must be unique together. That's all we need for the user model. Now update the user model in our settings.py file. So anywhere in your application settings.py file, what you need to do is update auth user model. And then this will point to the user's app, which is this users, and inside the models.py, this user model. So users.user model. Update. And now I will probably need to create the migrations. I thought. What is, oh shoot, I misspelled Django here. That's probably why I was not seeing. Yeah, okay. You might have noticed that earlier. Now I should be able to run the migrations. Yeah, so I created the migration and then migrate. Okay, now what's the problem? Default. Okay, so let's apply migrations. Migrate. By the way, I had to reset the database to apply these migrations. I had conflicts with my local compose, but yeah, now it worked. I just ran make migrations and migrate, so things should be running now. So run server should give me no errors. Okay, so okay, if I go to this, look this URL, I should be able to just see the default demo page. Host port 8000. Okay, yeah, so I have the default Django page, so we have our project running, up and running. Now let's set up the basics for authentication. For now, we are going to use REST framework's token authentication that is built into the REST framework. So that's what we are going to use, REST framework token. So we are going to use token authentication. And while we are here, we need to give it the REST framework configurations. So right after this, let's just write the REST framework configurations. Framework default authentication classes. It's going to be a list of REST framework authentication token authentication. Yep, that's what we are going to use, token authentication. And while we are here, let's just add other permission clauses. Default permission clauses, you're right here. And here we are going to just REST framework is authenticating. So by default, all of our routes are going to require the users to be authenticated. And if we want to not prevent this behavior, you can just remove this. But yeah, by default in this application, all of the routes are protected, and user needs to be authenticated to access that route. Okay, so we have now token authentication. Let's update our basic base urls.py file to include another pass from include another pass slash users user slash and include give it the paths to the users dot urls. Yeah, right. So now inside the URLs, it's going to inside their users, it's going to look for the URLs file py, and inside there it's going to look for URL parents list. And for now, it's just an empty list. Okay, we have the URL set up now. Okay, we are here. Let's just set up the URLs, the base URLs for authentication. So for this one, from generative URLs, import path. And for authentication, since we are using token authentication, by default REST framework provide the classes that automatically handles token creations for you. So from REST framework dot token dot views import obtain auth token. That's the class that we're going to use. So now we are going to another path and login slash. So any request that is on the login users slash login route obtain view, we are going to use this obtain auth token class dot add view here and give it the name is equals to login. That's all we need here for now. And if I'm right, and no. Okay, yeah, you see, we have the auth tokens migration. Okay, so now that those migrations are applied, we are good with our authentication. Now we have an API route that is slash user slash URL slash user slash login, and that will hit this route that we created, this login route, and it will create a user for you. It will create the token for that user that you provide, and what you need to provide is a JSON payload. You need to provide a JSON payload that is something like this. You need to give it username, which in our case is going to be email, and then the path field. So that's what you need to send to this endpoint, and it will give you the token. So now let's just write our basic views. By the way, if you are confused about the application architecture, you can just go to this Figma file, FigGem file, and I'll put this link in the description. So you will have better understanding how we're going to architect this application. Let's wait for open. Okay, yeah. Now I want to log in for now. So yeah, we will set up the ASJ server. Currently it's just WSJ server, and we will have some endpoints communicating from the front end to the back end, and we will have WebSocket connections. For details, you can just go to this link and look at this description. I'll make sure to put this link in the description for this Figma file. So for now, let's just create our basic endpoints for the users, and as we proceed, you will see where we are going to use those endpoints. So go to your code, and inside views.py, the users, let's just remove everything we have here, and let's just go to here. And here we need a couple of views right away. And those are So first of all, we need a view to get the user details, to get the users logged in. We need like the email, their username, their first name, last name, things like that. So for that, we are going to write a view, user me view. So class user me view, and then that is going to inherit the API. And we are going to import this API view from REST framework dot views import API view. And for this one, we are going to use the generic get method. Define get request HTTP. Okay, let's just import HTTP request. This will give us the better auto completion. That's what we're going to import from Django.http import HTTP request, and that's what we're going to use here. This is going to return a response from, and this response is going to come from the REST framework. Okay, so let's write our, for now, let's just pass. First, we need a serializer to get the details that we want. So inside the user, let's create another file called serializers. That is just basic Django REST framework. If you're rusty on it, just go to the REST framework documentation and you will get what I'm talking about. So here, what we need to do is we need a user public serializer that will just allow the backend to send the save information, like strip the passwords and things like that. So we have class user serializer models, and we need the serializer from REST framework. And we are going to use model serializer. Serializers dot model serializer. Model serializer. And then we're going to class meta to give it the serializer that to give it the model that we need to use. Model is equals to user. This one is going to come from dot model import user, and we are going to exclude some fields from going to the outside world. We don't want the password to go out. We don't want is super user. Date joint groups and user permissions. Okay, so we just excluded all of those. So now we need to import the serializer, which is equals to user public serializer, what we called it, user public serializer. Do we have auto import now? So dot serializer is import user public serializer. And since on this endpoint, user needs to be authenticated for it to get to this endpoint. So it means that if this function is running, the user is authenticated, because by default in settings.py we have is authenticated permission class. So since user is authenticated, we can just get the user from request.user and then get the data from the serializer. So the serializer will return the data of the user in this data category. So we can just return data is equals to user. and response data, data, and then status, and then we can just manually type 200, or we can just import the status from REST framework. And then status dot 200. By the way, you don't need this, but let's just add a little bit extra. Okay, so we have over one of the two endpoints that we need right away. This is user me. If you hit this endpoint and if you're logged in, it will return the details of the user. We need another endpoint that we'll use to extract the or create the new user. So for the login screen that you saw. So for login screen or to create user, we need another endpoint class user create view, and then this is going to inherit API views. Let's just create a generic view here. Yeah, we can use generic view. So from REST framework import generics. So here, since we are only allowing creation on this class, let's just use generics dot create API view. And then for this one, we have serializer class that we still need. We don't want user public serializer. So let's just go to this and write another serializer here. That is user create serializer. Serializer dot model serializer. Why? Model serializer. And here we need a password field since we are excluding, yeah, we need a password field here. Password is equal to serializer.jar field. It needs to be right only, that's right. And max length we are going to allow is, max length is going to be 45. So that's what we are going to allow. Class meta for this one, model is user again. Since we are going model using model serializer, that's why we need this. And then fields, that we just need 3 fields from the front end, and that is the email, username, and password. That's it. And we need to override a method. Yep, that's right. And we need to hash the password before it goes to. Okay, so let's just import the hash functions from Django. Hash function, and now password is equals to make password, and then value password, and then we can just call the super method to create and validate data. That's it. So now we can right away use this serializer here. Let's just import it with that serializer. The user creates serializer, and user creates serializer. And now we have serializer class. Let's just give it permissions class since we want the user to access this endpoint when they're not logged in, because how they can create their account when they are when we require them to be logged in for that. So we need to allow any for that. Allow any class. Let's just import that. Allow any class. Allow any. I'm just copying and pasting it. Allow any and allow any here. Okay, so all we need to do now is to override the create method of this class. And for this one, this is HTTP request. I'm just like giving it the type because it will give better. It will give better auto completion. Response and serializer. Serializer is equal to self.get serializer. By the way, these methods are defined on this create API views. That's why I'm just accessing this right away. Data is equals to request.data. And serializer, we need to validate that it's valid, create exception is equals to true. That's right. And then self dot perform create is another method that is defined. Perform create, and then we create the serializer. And headers equals to self dot get success headers. And for this, from this endpoint, I'm just returning the token right away from this endpoint. So user dot object. Don't we have that imported here? Dot model import user dot objects dot get username is equals to serializer dot user, right? And now let's just create a token for that user. Let's just import the tokens token class from REST from REST framework dot auth tokens. Okay, so this is the class that we're going to use. It's dot we are going to create the token for user is equals to user, and we are going to get the key from that. So key is actually the something that holds the token. So all we need to do is just return response and provide the data. The data is token to token status and headers. Okay, that's right. That's all we need. Okay, so what's messed up? Okay, we need that. Okay, these are the two endpoints that we need right now. So now let's just register those URLs here from dot. We need views as user views. So here, let's just create this, and then we need another register. I forgot the column there, comma there. And then this is going to be register. And for this, we are going to use that register method that we created. User views dot user create view. This one dot as view method. That's it. That's all we need. And there is another one that we did. With that, let's just do this. This is the me. Yeah. So user views dot user me view dot as view. And the name of this is going to be me. Okay, so that's all we need here. We created our views in the views.py file, and we registered our views here. So these are the endpoint that front end is going to expect. So now let's set up the WebSockets with Django. So we will use WebSockets to tell our client in real time that something that the user has logged in from some other device, and now let's just log the user in on that device. So we are going to use Django channels for all of the WebSocket stuff, and for that we need to convert our application to an ASGI application. You can just learn more about that on Django channels documentations. But for now, if you go to your settings.py, you will see this. We are currently running a WSGI application. So let's just install our basic dependencies and convert this to what we want, the ASGI application. So I'm going to put So that's what we are going to install. We are going to install channels with Daphne server. So Daphne is the server that is written by the same guys who wrote channel, and channel Redis as a caching layer. Just hit enter to install both of those, and meanwhile we can just go to our third-party apps and add channels here. Channels. So that's what will register the channels in your installed app. And besides that, we need a couple of more configurations. Now we want to convert our application to ASGI. Let's just comment this out and just change the settings to use the ASGI application. So now we're going to add this. So it was using WSGI, but now let's change it to the ASGI application. So we are going to point it to ASGI application, which is this server and asgi.py file. So you will see here is this application export. We are going to modify it a little bit to accommodate our changes since we are going to use channels for all of the ASGI handling and stuff. So we are going to modify it a little bit. So what we need a couple of imports here. So from channel, so we need to modify this file to include a couple of stuff, protocol type router, and we need to import URL router. And since we're here, let's just set up the authentication. So if you want your WebSockets to have access to the auth from Django, you need to import this middleware and configure this middleware with your ASG application. So from channels, auth middleware stacks. So we need to import, we need to have a variable application in this file. That's what Django expects, this file. So protocol type router, that's what we want. And for HTTP protocol, we want all of the HTTP endpoints to be handled by the Django's ASG application. And we will set up the WebSocket later here once we have like the WebSocket router set up. So that's pretty much it that we need in this file. Make sure you are just naming this variable application. And now let's just go back to the settings.py file, and we need to provide a couple of configurations here for caching and stuff, because Django channels need caching for a feature that we're going to use here. So for now, let's just create another service in our local compose, and that's the Redis service. So I'm going to run the Redis in my local compose. Image Redis 6. Let me see if everything is good to go. Redis 5, and yeah, default port is good. We don't need volumes, so we can just remove that. So now let's just restart our Docker Compose so it can see these changes. So now it's trying to build the Redis. Okay, so Redis is ready to accept connections. Okay, so now we have Redis running on our port 6379. Let's just add the configurations. So first thing we need is caches that is used by the Django's cache system. So this is how it's defined. So cache is variable, and we're going to use Redis cache, and we have our Redis running on our 6379 port, and that's what we defined in our local compose file. Beside this, we need one more configuration in this file, and that's channels layer. So we need this configuration to tell channels to use Redis as its caching layer. So we are providing the host and the port 6379. So we gave it the backend and the configuration for the Redis server. So that's all we need. These are the two things that we are going to use. So we are going to use cache in Django a little bit just to set up some values, some token values in the cache. And channel layer is going to use the Redis layer to store the channel names and the reference, all that stuff. So we will see that. So just save it. And now if I start the application, it should start. It should start an API server, and we should be able to see that in the logs. And yeah, so it started. It looks like it's working. Now that we have our server running, the ASG application, let's just set up our first consumer. So a consumer is like a view, but for WebSocket connections. You can learn more about that in channels documentation. But yeah, we are going to set up our one and only consumer. So inside the users.p users folder, we are going to create a little file called consumers.py. Yeah, that's right. And we are going to write our first consumer. And first, we are going to inherit from a sync WebSocket consumer. So code of basically just define the consumer that deals with the QR code login. Okay, sync. Let's just import that paste. So it requires the connect and disconnect method for accepting the WebSocket connection. So let's just write over define connect method. So we are going to pass in the WS token in the parameter. So this is a token that will validate which connection we are going to like establish between two different devices. So we will do that with this WebSocket connect with this WebSocket token. And then we will first check the cache. So let's just import the Django's cache because we are going to use that. So first of all, we are going to just check that key in the cache, and it should be in the cache. You will see why once we will have the other views in use.py file. So we should have this token in the cache. If not, that is not a valid key, or that's an expired key. Has key is equals to cache dot has key. We'll check that. Self.ws token. As key, then we are going to accept the connection. So we are asynchronously going to set self-read token. Okay, so we are going to save the channel name. So later we can reference this channel name once we have the correct code in our views.py. And then let's just give it a timeout of 600. And we accept the connections, and the WebSocket connection should be on at this point. So let's just write our disconnect. Yep, disconnect method. We are not going to use this, so let's just write underscore there. Remove the value from the cache if it's there. Cache dot a delete. So this is the method that starts with a is that means async. So you can perform operation asynchronously or synchronously with the cache. delete many, and then self.ws token. Okay, and there is one more method that we will use to send the token to the user, so that they can use that token to retrieve user information and get logged in. And I'll show you how you can use or trigger these functions. Token event token will provide the token when we call this function or method. Payload that is going to be sent to the user is going to be type to token, and then data is going to be event, the token from the event object. That's right. And we are going to send this payload. Send, and text data is equals to payload. But before that, since this is a dictionary, we need to send, and we are sending text data, we need to convert this JSON to the text. Import JSON, and JSON dot dumps and payload. So we are done with our consumer. That's all we need here. So this connect method will handle the WebSocket connection. This disconnect method will handle the WebSocket disconnection, and this is the method that we will call from our views. And I'll show you how you can call different methods from the views using the channel layer. That's all we need here. So let's just write our router for the WebSocket. And let's just create another file called routing.py. From Django URLs, import file. That's right. And we need to import the consumer from dot consumers. Parents. Oh, by the way, we need a regular expression path. And that's what we're going to allow. So we need ws/core auth/. So we don't need name here. We can just ignore this part. That's all we need. So we have consumer and SGA application, and let's just close this. And that's all we need here. We have our URL router, and now let's go back to our ASGA application and add the WebSocket handler. So it will add WebSocket auth middleware stack. So this middleware will allow us to access the authentication stuff inside our consumers. So let's just import our router, the URL pattern from this routing.py file. URL router, and let's provide it this URL WebSocket URL patterns list, and that's all we need here. Now we should be able to use. Okay, so I forgot one thing. It's still starting the WSG application, and to start AC application in settings.py at the top of the install app, we need to add definitely here. So now you should see it will start the ASGI application, hopefully. So, Okay, so here you go. You see, starting ASCII definite. So yeah, so now we have our WebSockets and ASGS server running. So let's write our remaining views. We need two more views to handle different things related to called authentication, QR code authentication. So we need two more views. So one view will handle assigning the token, and the other one will handle validating that token from the other device. So yeah, let's just write those two views. So since this view will be accessed by the user when he's not logged in, we are going to get the token when the user is not logged in. So we need to give it allow any. So just define get and then self request all those to there. And then first we will check if there is the cookie in the cookies. So we will set the cookie. So if someone is like bombarding that this endpoint, we will just return the cookie, the HTTP only cookie that we'll set if that's there. Okay, so let's just import cache from Django.core. So we will check the cache if we have that. We will check if we have this WS cookie in the cache, because it should be in the cache if it's a valid token. Cache.has key. Then we are going to just return the response with the same cookie. And if that's not the case, we are going to generate a cookie, generate a token, and set it in the cookies. And let's just import UUID to create that. UUID 4. U2 okay, UUID 4 dot. I think that's right. Is that right? UUID 4. This, and we will check if that already in the cache. If no, okay, so this will make sure we don't have that cookie in the cache already in the cache. If that's the case, we will just create a new one. Am I using cache wrong? Okay, from django.core.cache. So that's what we need. No, yeah, no, that's right. So now set that cookie in the cache. I got set this token. We don't need any value here, so we can just do none or an empty string because none cannot be stored. So we have timeout of 10 minutes. So it's better to write 10 minutes here. It's a better practice. 10 minutes in seconds. So 60 times 10s, that is 10 minutes in seconds. And that will be our timeout. Now let's generate response object. Response, and we need WS token, and we need to set the HTTP only cookie in the headers. So expires in of that cookie is Yeah. So this cookie will expire in 10 minutes. Basically, that's what this line means. Response.set cookie, and then WS token expired and expired this. Okay, should it be only to true? So that means the client-side JavaScript would not be able to access this cookie. Path is equal to request.path. And that means that cookie will only be sent to the server on this current path, which we will get from this request object. So that's all we need, and then just return the response. So this view will generate the code and send it to the user for the login. And let's just strip this to 6. Let's just only allow 6 here. So I just take the first 6 from whatever is produced here. So now let's try our final view, and this view will be responsible for getting the user logged in if the correct code is provided. So we send it as WS token in the request body, and now let's just do this here. If you are not able to access, it should then raise the error. So WS token, and we are going to validate that the same token is in our cache as well. Because if the token is expired, it should not be there in our cache. And we also need to get the channel name to be extracted from the cache. So channel name. So remember, that's what we set here. Channel name token, that's exactly what we want. We want this token here. So if you remember correctly, in our consumers, we set it here. So we set this token in the cache. So we are going to extract that here. So this will give us the channel name, and if you look at here, we are setting the channel name in the cache. So we need channel name to access this instance of the consumer running in the background somewhere. So we got the channel name. So now we can access that instance if that's there. So it means we have a valid token, and then let's just get or generate the authentication token. Token.objects, query the database, get right, and now we are going to get the key. That's a similar stuff. Channel name is equals to get channel layer. Okay, so now we need to access the channel layer to be able to communicate with that channel layer. So that channel layer will be basically the instance running this consumer when the user connected. So now we need to find that, and in channels, and we can do that by calling the get channel layer function from channels. So this channel will give us the channel layer, and now we need to provide it the channel name that we want to communicate with. So By the way, this channel layer, if you want to call this function, that is asynchronous. So to call it from the synchronous function, which is Django correctly by just provide synchronous handlers. So we need to somehow handle that asynchronous code in this synchronous handler. So for that, we have utility from ASJ ref.sync, I think, import, yeah, if I'm correct, this should be the right import. And now we need to call that send function. So what we are going to try here is to call this send function to send the token to this to the client that connected to that same WebSocket using that same token. So now we are going to try to communicate to that. So it seems to sync, and then we are going to use this channel layer here dot send. We know that we have this dot send method here. So dot send. So that's what we are just telling it to communicate with this channel name. And then let's just provide it the payload. Okay, so here is something a little tricky. So the type, you need to provide this type while calling or communicating with the channel layer. So send.token is going to call this function in consumers.py file. Let me do it side by side. So if you want to communicate to this function send_token, you want to provide the type to send.token. So this will communicate to this function. So suppose if it was the function send payload, so what you will do is you will do send, instead of underscore you will type dot and then payload. So that will communicate to this function. So for now, let's just move that back, and then the payload that we want to send, auth token. So now, since we have our user logged in, it will send the token to the client that is not logged in from the client that is logged in. So now we can just safely remove that from the cache. Remove the token from the cache, ws token, and then return response of success. And if the token is not valid or token is not in the cache or expired, anything, we are going to return the response of HTTP 400 bad request. And that's pretty much all we need. If everything goes well, we should be able to communicate with between two different clients, one with the token that been logged in, and the other one that is not logged in, and successfully transfer the token between those two, so the other client can also get logged in. Okay, so the only thing left now is to register those endpoints here. So I'm going to register another path. Let's just copy one of those. It will be easier. So dashboard auth code auth view, and then let's just rename it to code auth. And this is for login. So yeah, we have those as registered views, and we should be able to access those these endpoints. Okay, now let's start working on the front end. So for the front end, to avoid all of the redundant redundant work that we have to do to set up the authentication, I already have a template for you guys that has all of the things already set up. So if you go to this GitHub link, I'll make sure to put that link in the description. So if you go to this you will find a template that you can just download and copy and paste it to your app. And this template basically has all of the authentication stuff taken care of. And if you want to know how I coded this, I actually have a full video on there, so you can have a look at those. I'll also put the link in the description as well. So if you want to like code the authentication with React and Next.js, you want to know how I coded all of the authentication with the token authentication, you can just watch that video. Okay, so what I'm going to do is just download this as a zip file. I'm going to download the whole code base as zip file and then just copy and paste that to my project. So let me just open my downloads folder. And then let's just move this to here. Copy folder. Okay, and I'm going to rename this to frontend. Okay, so that's our frontend code. We don't need this VS Code thing. Okay, so this is the Next.js project. All you need to do is just run yarn to install all of the dependencies. So okay, did I do anything wrong? Oh, okay. So what's wrong? Okay, I messed up the code structure. Let's just delete the whole thing. Now let's just copy the right one. Again, sorry for that. Front end. Remove this VS Code thing. Now I should be able to run yarn and install everything. So this is basically Next.js with TypeScript. You can have a look at the README file and it will give you the highlight about this. How would you do that? So in this, I'm using Next.js, TypeScript, Chakra UI, and all of that. So it basically consider a Django backend running on port 8000 that will give it all of those endpoints. So if you go to this services API, so here are those endpoints that we built. So this user slash, so if we open URLs, if I can open this side by side. So this user slash login endpoint is going to call this, register endpoint is going to call this, and then this me endpoint is going to call this me. So everything is set up for us here. And yeah, that's all we need here. This is just, we can just remove this from here. Yeah, we don't need that. So we have, basically we have these three endpoints and we will code this, these two in this tutorial. Okay, I'll meet you guys once the dependencies are installed. Okay, so dependencies are installed. If I run this project in the dev mode, you will see that you will see something similar. So it's running on localhost port 3000, and you can just visit localhost port 3000. Okay, once you run yarn dev, you will see something similar to what I showed you in the demo application. There are a few things missing, but yeah, things are similar. By the way, you can just run the backend, make sure the backend is running, and you will be able to log in. You should be able to log in and register accounts right away. So let's just run the server. Okay, that's running. Let's just try creating an account. like I said, everything is in that template, in that front end template is considering those endpoints. So as long as you have those endpoints set up like I have, the front end should be able to call these endpoints right away and do stuff relate like this. So let's just create test1@gmail.com. Let's see if it works. Yeah, it worked. Test1@gmail.com and give it my password. Okay, what what was the password? Hmm. Okay, I think something broke here. What's that? Oh, okay, so there is something wrong with the CLI here. We have class meta. Oh, no. Why would I do that? So we need, instead of that, we need this here. Account. Okay. Test1@gmail.com. Ah, email, username, password. Oh no. Okay. Hope it works. No, I have not made any other blunders. So again, register this one. This one. Please. What's the problem now? Let me see what the network status is there. Something broke again. Oh, now I know. Okay. So I think the front end is not able to communicate with the back. Okay, so it's related to cores. Okay, I should have done that earlier. So we need to give it like the course setting. So if you go to settings.py file, we need to give it a few more configurations to allow the front end to communicate with the back end. So right at the bottom, that's what we need to add. So we need to tell the backend, hey, allow all the requests from localhost port 3000. Okay, so now we need to provide the middleware, the course middleware as well. I promise this is the last one. So you need to add this middleware course headers. This is the dependency that we add in install apps, middleware and course middleware. Please work now. Please, please. Finally, we are logged in. So yeah, just don't forget to add this configuration. Number one, we need to add this course middleware, this line, and then we need to add the course allowed origins from localhost port 3000. We need to allow the traffic. So yeah, that's all we need here. And now we are logged in. So now let's quickly work on the front end. So first thing first, we need to add another button here that would redirect the user to the core login screen. So for that, let's just do that quick. What we are going to do is just add another button here, and that button is going to redirect the user to core login button. Now we are going to create this route, but currently it will show like the Next.js default 404 page. So if we try go to that page, that doesn't exist. Yeah, 404 page. So yeah, that's exactly what we want. And the other page that we want is login. Okay, so here we want a button. We want a button that will redirect the user to a screen where he can enter the login code that the user sees on the other device. So for that, let's just add a button real quick home page. So this is the component that renders this button. So you see you are logged in, and here you see you are logged in. So let's just real quick add the button. And import button from Java, and then import link from Next.js. Href is equals to auth /QR login. So that's the link. Okay, login with code. That's right. It should be here. Yeah. So we see that, and that is also not available for a page for us. Yeah, for a page. So now let's add those two pages. So inside the auth, we need to create this QR login page. New file .ksx rc. So I have this snippet that will create the React TypeScript component for me, and then I want to call it QR login. QR login. That's it. And now we need to add another one. Let's just add another button. What was that? Code login. So inside the auth, let's just add another file called code login.tsx trc. If you don't have this snippet, you can just manually write this. But yeah, I have this custom snippet in the VS Code that I have written myself. So that is code login. So now if I try going to that page, refresh this, it should show me that default page. Page QR login. Oh, I need to export default. So you have to like default export these. Export default code login. And same is the case for this one. Now we should be able to access this page. Okay, yeah, so that's it. You see that? So now let's start working on these pages. So for first, we are going to work on this code login, QR code login. So let's just work on this page, code login. Let's just log out so that we can see that code login button. Log out. And then try code login. We should see that default from code login. This is the component that we want to render. That's right. So now let's start working on. So first of all, on this component, we want to make the API call to the backend to get the code, to display on the screen that the user can enter on the other device. So for this one, let's just use React Query to make API calls. So that's it. So we will use the React Query to make those API calls. So let's just import query keys. This is coming from this Backend stack React Query, and then we have the APIs. Let's just add this. By the way, we don't have that function right now. So we have this endpoint that we can call. So if you go to views.py, we have this endpoint that will give us this token, this WebSocket token. So what we're trying to do is just get that token using a React query. So let's just remove this for now. We'll come back to that later. So here, let's just add another function. That will get WS code. And return. Zeus instance, and the response is the endpoint is port auth. So this is the endpoint that we are going to call to get the code from this view that we just mentioned. So we will call this endpoint and get our code. User slash code auth. Let's just give it some types. So if I go to this, just go to user types and create this code auth response here. So we are going to get, if you look at this, we are going to get the response in this format. So this is, it has just one key called WS token. So let's just add that in our types. So we get the type safety and auto completion, stuff like that. Export. Yes. So yeah, this will give us auto completion, and we can provide that as a generic. Import that. Okay, so now we should be able to call this endpoint. So this keys is coming from the constant file, if it can auto import it. Okay, let's just we want this get WS key. And then we want to give it some options here. One is select. We want to select data up here. And then give it some tail time. So after every 10 seconds, it will make the request to the backend to validate that token. Okay, so let's just have the. I'm just going to copy and paste the code. Okay, so to make it an authenticated route, that's what I have here. So called login.get layout. Why I'm not getting the autocomplete? Oh, I have given it the wrong type. Let me give it the correct type. This is not a function component. This is the Next.js page, and I have a custom component in this code base for that. And then I think I have a generic setup for this. No. Okay. Right. Next page doesn't have a prompt, so yeah, you can just ignore that. Now I should get the get layout. Yeah, get layout page, and then for this one, I'm going to make this page authenticated. Okay. And then by default, this is going to be a React. Okay, before anything, I think we should start working on the custom hook that will be responsible for connecting to WebSocket and do all of the connection to WebSocket and handling the real-time stuff. So let's just go to the hooks folder and create a new file called use ws.ts. Okay, let's just write the custom hook. So this hook will be responsible for connecting to WebSocket and handle the real-time communication for the code logging. Okay. So right away we need to keep track of some things, and the first one is socket equals to use ref, and let's just give it the type. That's right, import user from React. And then what I like to do is just keep track of my listeners so I can just remove them when they are not required. So that is the list of listeners, a map basically. Use ref is a map of okay, so this is pretty complicated generic. So it's a map, and the key of that map is going to be string, and the value is going to be a function. That can be anything, and that function doesn't return anything, and by default it's a new map. Okay, so this will keep track of all the listeners, so the handler functions. And now the errors, keep track of error. Sorry for that. And then this is going to be a list, or the error, it is going to be string or null. Same case for loading. And now let's just write our connect method. So this method will, this function will be responsible for connecting to WebSocket. Yes, right. And then it will take, this is an asynchronous function, and it will take a WebSocket token. This is the token that we'll get from this API endpoint. This API endpoint that we are going to call this getWS token. So that is going to be there for us. Let's just remove those files. This is going to be a string, and now let's just if socket dot current. So if you already have a socket, we are going to disconnect. This is not going to come from the process, and we are going to write this function first. Connect is equal to a function. So if there is a socket, we will close that. If there is a socket that's already open, we will close that socket. So now let's just create another. So the base URL first. Okay. So the base URL for the socket is going to be or we can either set this environment variable, or by default it will try to connect to this localhost port 8000. That's the exact port our Python Django server is running on, port 8000 by default. So here you go, port 8000. Okay, so now let's just create the URL. And if you remember correctly, with consumer, our connect method is expecting a WS token page URL param. So let's just generate that URL here. Socket, and not this. Yep. So we are expecting this WS token to be in the URL. So yeah, that's basically what we want. If you're confused, if you go to your routing.py, we want to connect to ws/coreauth slash the WebSocket token. So that's what we gave it here. WebSocket token ws/coreauth slash WebSocket token. So that URL will match this pattern here. So we have the URL. Now we can do socket.current is equals to a new WebSocket instance. So we are using like built-in WebSocket class. Now let's just attach the required instances, required handlers. So on close, what we want to do is the callback for on close is going to call listeners. So we are going to clear our listeners. Another handler, yeah, on message handler. And for this, I'm going to, for now, let's just handle message. I'm going to just leave the comment here. And before that, let's just handle the error. Set error. Error connecting to server. And just set loading to false. So by default, it will start loading. Okay. And there is one thing that's left, which is socket.onOpen. Yeah. Socket.current.onOpen. When the socket opens, we are going to register a listener. So we are going to call it the function. So register the default listener. And then after that, we're going to just call set loading to false. So yeah, that's what we want. So now let's just handle the message. Let's just write a function for that. Handle socket. So when our new message arrives on the socket, this is a global this dot message event, and that's going to be any we are not caring about the type for now, just for now. If you want, you can give it the types. This is the message event, and then message, and let's just give it the default type for now. And if you remember, if you go back to your consumer, we know that our message going to contain a type and the data. So let's just give it that at least. Please. So message is going to be a message, and that's going to be json.parse e.data. So we'll have the data that's coming in as a data key on this event. So now all we need to do is just get the listeners. So what I'm doing here is I'm just registering the listeners based on their type. So since this is the token type, there will be a key in this map that is named token, and the function that is listening corresponding to that key. So yeah, we will by default register that token here, register that token key here. I hope that makes sense. So let's just get that listener. So we'll check if the map has the listener. Listeners are count. Listeners dot what So listeners, so listeners.friend.get and then message.type, that's right. And then if we have a handler corresponding to that type, we'll just assign that event to that listener, and it will take care of like managing that message. Yep, that's it. We will, if that function exists, we will just call that function. So now we can just on message, we can just do this and then pass e. That's right. Now let's just do let's just add a register handler function. So if you want to register a listener, that's the function we will call, and it will set the key with that listener. So yeah, that's all we want for now. And by default, I think we need to add the cleanup. So let's just add this use effect, and this use effect is going to call this disconnect. So whenever that component that call this use ws login unmounts, the disconnect will call, so we don't have like the listeners and stuff dangling there. So now we have all of the handlers at least. So we can just return connect, disconnect, error, and login. So yeah, that's what we are going to return from this. And another thing we are going to do is just to handle code login. So whenever the new, okay, so this code login function is going to take care of sending that token to through the post endpoint to the backend. So whenever you're logged in, you will send the token to the backend through this endpoint, through this function. So for that, let's just move to token auth. By the way, this is the file that takes care of all of the authentication using token. So here we want to add another function. This is the code login function, which will take the token and then return whatever is returned from the API. So if we move to code login and give that context a default value, that's exactly what it wants here. So let's give it the default value here for now. And then inside the code, inside this function, we need to provide this. So this is the function that will try to call, that will take that token and then try to call this me endpoint and try to basically try to log the user in with that token. So that token will come when we send the correct WS token, WebSocket token, and we will get the the token for the user to log in. So this is that token. We are using that token to get the user logged in, and then just dispatching the login type dispatcher. So that's what we are using here. We are using reducer. I hope that makes sense. The code login, let's just give that function to this, and now we are going to use this function here. So we can, by the way, I have another hook that you can call to get access to this token context auth. So if you go to hooks, we have this use auth hook that you can use. So let's just use that hook. Let's just use auth. Import that, and then I'm going to get the code login function. So now we have that code login function. So we will call this function, give it the token that we get from the front end, from the back end, through the other side of the client, and then just try to log in with that token. So this token is basically going to be the authentication token for the user, basically. And that's why we're using it here. We set the session, so the token will be sent in the headers. If you go to this function, it is just setting the headers, authorization header to that token. So the backend will now, at this point, will consider this client as logged in. I hope that makes sense. So now we have this handle code login WebSocket handler. And now when the socket open, let's just register this handler. So when socket opens, yeah, register this handler. So we are going to register a listener that's named token, and then report login. So as soon as we receive the token from the WebSocket, we will try to log in with that token. I hope that makes sense. So this is the flow. First, the client, this page will try to, let me explain if I can. So if I go to this, so we have this page, and this page will try to, that's dark mode. Okay. So we have this page, this code login page. What it will try to do is just when this page renders, it will try to call the endpoint to get the token. So it will get the token from the server. It will get the token from the server and just connect on that route to the server through WebSocket. So first it will try to fetch the token. This is the token. And then it will use that token to communicate with the backend WebSocket. So it will call the WebSocket endpoint slash port auth slash that WS, whatever the token is going to be. So it will, now it's waiting for the other side to give the permission for this device to log in. So for example, this device one, for example, let's just call this device 2. This is the device 2, and it's now waiting for the device 1 to. So it's now waiting. So this is the device. So suppose this device is already logged in. So this device 1 is already logged in. So now it's waiting for this device to tell the server, hey, just allow the device to log in. Just give it the token and allow it the login. So it's waiting on this WebSocket to give this. As soon as this this device 2 will give the consent, hey, just give it the token. So suppose it will send a post request to the server, hey, this give the permission to give the token. Hey, server, give token, if I can get, give token to device 2. And then it will tell this is the WebSocket. It will just send the WebSocket ID or WebSocket token of that device. And since this device 2 needs to be authenticated to call this endpoint, we'll just get the information about that user. And then we will just send the token to this device after the consent. I hope this makes more sense now. Oh, by the way, this is device 1. Okay, this is device 1, just giving consent to server, hey, just allow this device to log in. And this device 2 is connected to the server through WebSocket, and server will just push the updates to this to device 2, and it will just log the user in. Okay, so now let's just add the remaining stuff in this. So here we are going to call that, we are going to call this hook that we just worked on. It can auto import, yeah, it did. And then we just get the error and connect. That's what we exported here. So now on success, we can just add on success data. We are going to try to connect to a way to connect, and then this is going to be an asynchronous function. And then this data is, what is the type of this data? I don't even, okay. Data dot, yeah, WS token. So yeah, we will give this connect the WebSocket token, and it will just connect to that WebSocket. That's right. Now let's just add JSX. I'm just going to copy and paste, and this is just generic stuff. So just replace this return statement with this one, and then import this, all of these from Chakra. So just import these from Chakra UI. This spinner is also coming from Chakra UI. And then this QR code, to generate this QR code, I'm just going to, we do have this app origin. Let's just install the QR code. This is just the React package, just the npm package. So for this thing, by the way, you see, it even connected to the WebSocket. But let's just install it. So yarn add React QR code. So that's what you need to install. React QR code. Use color mode values. A hook coming from Chakra UI. By the way, this hook is used to switch between two different to show different colors based on the dark and light frame. Can I import that, please? Yeah. Use color mode value, right? So this app region should be coming from the constants file. App region, I should have a constant here. I should API URL. Oh, so okay, I need to add that. So the app origin is the origin of the React server or this Next.js server. So we are currently running this on port 3000. So let's just go to the and import app origin from that file. App origin and import this button. Okay, so now I hope that QR code thing is installed. Reinstall, restart the server, and now I can just import that QR code from QR code. This is the import for that. Now this component should be up and running. What's the problem here? Okay, yeah, it should work now. So now if I refresh this page, you will see it will try to connect to WebSocket. So if I go to network, go to WebSocket, it will first try to, let's just go to all for now. It's building. Okay, so you see, this component rendered, called this endpoint. This endpoint sent this token, this WebSocket token, and it used that WebSocket token. You see this same token here. If you go to fetch XHR, you see 3A0F, and if you go to WebSocket connection 3A0F. So it used that same connection, same token, and the backend even accept the connection. So if we look at the logs, so here you can see these are the connections. So now let's just get there. Okay, so we have one part done. Now let's just log in. Now we are logged in, so let's start working on this other page. It's okay, so QR login. So this should be pretty quick. QR login, and there are certain things that we need to change right away. First of all, that thing is this component is the next page node. And then we need to give it the authenticated node. The same thing that we did with the other component. So we need to give it the get layout. So just wrap it inside the authenticated block. So only authenticated users can access this page. If you're confused about this, you can just watch one of my previous videos where I said all of this authentication stuff. I'll make sure to put that link, and if I remember, I'll just put that in the hand right corner. Okay, so now we need a form for the user to enter that code. Let me just do one thing. Let's just open these two side by side. So now here is the try login. So what we want is to this code. We want this code to be typed in in one of the fields on this left-hand browser that is not logged in, and we essentially want the user to get logged in after that. So for that, we have to call another function, another endpoint that is. Let's just write that endpoint in our API instance, Auth API, and then inside that, we are going to add another post endpoint. So this post endpoint is basically code/login, and it will send that WebSocket token to the view, to this view. And then this view will check if that token is valid. If valid, it will try to see if there is another client that is connected on that token, and it will just send the token to that client. If that makes sense. We have added this QR code, QR login function. And now here we need to add a mutation here. So mutation is something from React query where you want to make post request to the server or essentially change something on the server. We call this post. So post QR login mutation. Use mutation from tag stack query. Auth API, and then we want to call the QR login endpoint. Retry, just limit the retry to 1. Then on success, let's just ignore data. We want to just redirect the user to whatever route was. What was that? Router is supposed to use router from Next.js, and then router.push. Path. So now, other than this, we just have some basic stuff. So we are going to handle a form, and for that, we are going to use React hooks form. Use form from React hook form, and then we are going to give it some default values. So if you give it the default value, it will give you better auto completion and type safety. So let's just give it the default value, which is WS token. So that's what we are expecting. And here we want handle submit, register. So if you are curious about this, just go to the React hook form documentation, and you will see how to handle forms. Let me know if you want to make, if you want me to make a video about that. But for now, let's just add other stuff. So the toast that we are going to show on success or on error, this is also coming from Chakra. And the other thing we want to enter here is, so what we are allowing is if the user scans this QR code, this QR code basically has the query parameter in it. So if you want the user to be able to scan it and just log in right away, we want to add this use effect. So what this use effect will allow is basically it will fetch the code from the URL, and if there is a code, it will try to send that code to the backend and try to log the user in right away, just extracting the token from the URL as query parameter. So this is the QR login mutation. This is mutation. I just misspelled that. And then this code will be coming from the router. So post router.query, and we want to extract code. By the way, if you open this, this is the code that we set here. So you see this query parameter, we set that. And if the user just scan that, that will already be there in the query parameter. And then we need a handle. Let's just return whatever we want to return from here. So this is the JSX for this component. Pretty simple, nothing special here. Let's just import few things from Chakra. Form control is also from Chakra. This input is also from Chakra. Error message and button. Okay, so we have all the imports. All we need is this column move import and this onSubmit method. So let's just write this onSubmit method. So when the user types, type that code, we want to post that code to the backend. So the backend function view can handle it and just load the other user in. So values is equals. So let's see what. Okay, that is almost there. So we want to show a toast as well. So it has title success, and then status is also success. Okay, that's all we want. So when this form is submitted, it should send the post request to the backend with that token, and then that should basically essentially should log the user in. So let's just refresh. We have our form, and this form is expecting this token from the user. Remember, we are not logged in, so basically this on the right, this is the, let me just make it light theme manually. So if I go to application, so basically Chakra UI by default gets a theme from that local storage, so it should be a light theme. So this light theme is basically, or if you go to the left, so this right theme is this device 2, and this device 2 is connected through a WebSocket on a WebSocket URL, and that WebSocket URL you can see here. You should be able to see that here. Okay, so yeah, you see that this is connected on that WebSocket, and now waiting for device 1 to give the consent. By the way, I think that this is too little. Yeah, let's just give it 60 seconds, so hold 1 minute before it makes the request again. The backend expect the token to be valid for 10 minutes, so I think we can just do it times at least 9, so it will wait for 9 minutes. Just reconnect. Okay, so now let's just remove this. This is basically device 2. It is connected to WebSocket and waiting for device 1, which is this browser on the left. Just give it the consent to get logged in. So now let's just copy. I'm just going to copy this and then just put it here, and hopefully everything works. Okay, yeah. So this light theme got logged in. Let's just give it a try once more. Log in with code. Just log it out. Try code login, and this is the code. this is the code again. Refresh. That was the code again. Login, and then this got logged in. So that's it for this tutorial. I hope that makes sense. I'll share all of the resources in the description below, so you can have the better understanding. I'll share Figma and maybe this XValley draw if you need this. But yeah, other than that, I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any question, just feel free to ask me.